Deebo Samuel finished wide receiver number 2, 59 rush attempts, 365 yards, 8 touchdowns on the ground, 77 receptions on 121 targets, 1,405 yards through the air, 6 touchdowns, and he had 24.4% of the target share. Thoughts on Deebo Samuel?
Yeah, 8 touchdowns is a lot, right? Like
Right?
8 rushing touchdowns is a lot. Now, a
Led
lot
the
of that,
team, I think.
yeah, yes, he did, and a lot of that was due to the inability for that running back room to stay healthy, right? Like you could see in certain situations after especially Elijah Moore, because he was kind of carrying that load when healthy. When he was dinged up, they were leaning on Deebo more often, and he wasn't getting 20 touches a game back there, but he was getting 8 to 10. Right, that's really when all that stuff started. Was more of the back end of the season as they started realizing, hey, this works. Like he is fast enough, he is dynamic enough that he can get outside the tackle box and turn it up the field. We can decoy him to keep defenses honest and maybe bring a safety down into the box and open up some different things. Pure gamesmanship by Shanahan, and it worked out well because he was able to do things in the red zone and get into the end zone period. But I do expect those numbers to regress.
So here's kind of where I'm going to approach the Devo situation. I agree with Kevin. They're going to get something done. Something's going to be figured out. I think there will be some assurances made that we're not going to use you as a running back as much. But I think there will be something that we're going to do whatever we can to win football games, and sometimes that means we're going to have to use you as like a running back, but with like screen passes instead of the jet sweeps and what have you. You won't be directly getting handoffs from the quarterback, but we will use you in ways we're going to get the ball in your hands. You are a playmaker. For me, at the right spot, and wide receiver 7 is hard to argue with. Even outside of the top 5, you're going to have to be looking at him if he's the 5th or 6th or 7th wide receiver off the board. I think you're going to be okay with putting Deebo on your team.
I'll be the one to say that I'm going to look elsewhere on the Deebo side of things. Several things come to mind as to why. And Kevin, you're right. You, like that's kind of where you're having to draft him, is in that wide receiver 6, 7, 8 range. Right now, he's coming off the board as the wide receiver 6 in the average ADP, 17th overall in a half-point PPR scoring there. But part of the reason that I'm going to be out on Deebo is that ADP there, right? Like I think Deebo is going to be a fringe wide receiver 1 this year, and I'm not opposed to moving him further back into wide receiver 13, 14, 15, 16, kind of in that range. The top end of wide receiver 2, I think, is probably more where he's going to finish on that one. 14 touchdowns overall is going to be very, very hard for him to duplicate. And if Trey Lance comes in, I think their run to pass ratio goes more heavily towards the run. And San Francisco didn't throw the ball much last year anyway, right? Like you look at it, Deebo Samuel had 121 targets. That was good for almost a quarter of the target share. And so San Francisco throws the ball less than 500 times per season. And that's how they're set up to win, how they're set up to do. So if you take a lot of that rushing work away from Deebo, I don't know that you're going to see him get up in there. I think probably it's going to be pretty safe to say that he sees somewhere between 70 and 80 receptions, about 11 to 1,200 yards, and I'm going to say 6 to 7 touchdowns is kind of where I have him projected at.